everybody. New podcast out with Lauren Jones. It's a good one, not gonna lie. Lauren steals the show, obviously. LJ does a wonderful job kind of sharing her climb through corporate America, how keeping up with the Joneses was really affecting her negatively, and how she kind of had a midlife crisis and changed course. Ended up launching her own business, and shares that journey as well as a lot of good actionable advice. Lauren is a passionate advocate for women in business, women entrepreneurs. It's an incredibly admirable thing, and she wrote a book with fellow industry cohorts. So just when you get a chance to listen to it, please give us your comments and feedback. She's fantastic, and this is one of those ones that I probably could have gone for about 3 hours, but we kept it under an hour for you, so please enjoy. LJ, Lauren Jones, I'm sorry, I keep saying LJ.
I love LJ.
LJ. But LJ, welcome to Beers and Careers on this Monday afternoon.
Cheers. Love it.
Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It was a nice drive out, actually.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Scenic suburban Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. You officially set the record with this podcast for longest commute.
Yes, I actually flew 8 hours to get here.
You did. And you're the first guest in the podcast studio from as far away as you are. Yes,
Fantastic.
I've had one guest on from Australia, but it was virtual. So
that's another time zone.
It's true. Although you are too. Fantastic person, LJ. I'm so excited to share your story. But before we get into that, so let the audience get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
Well, it's Beers and Careers, and we went through this before, but I'll let you give your boilerplate. I always ask people what their favorite drink, cocktail, libation is. You went right for the Diet Coke.
I went right for the Diet Coke. Although I do love myself some of the LaCroix waters. Yes. Or Waterloo. I'm a little bit of a soda water snob. Yeah.
Have you had a polar seltzer?
I haven't had a polar seltzer.
Oh, yes. Can't wait. You're going home with some.
Okay.
You're having one on your ride out of here. Because that's a local company here.
Okay.
Family-owned business. Been around forever, but in New England, we love our polar seltzer.
Okay. I got to have some.
That's awesome.
Got to have some.
You know my style, so this shouldn't be a shocking question for you, but do you have a favorite curse word?
Favorite curse word? Probably the F word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be the runaway favorite on the show. Now, I'm excited to ask this to you because I know you're well-read, but like favorite book? Or like, all right, so Beers and Careers built this podcast for people that were either ending that time of life in high school or in college, looking to figure out what they wanted to do with their life. And I started meeting people through sales, VPs of ops and engineering and IT that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and potentially sometimes older, who love what they did, never thought they'd be doing it when they were 18. And I was like, we are telling our children the wrong thing. Like, just do stuff you like, and life starts to help figure itself out for you.
100%.
And so I share that now because maybe that will help you narrow your favorite book choice or recommendation on.
Yeah. Okay. So Rob will tell you, I am a huge book nerd.
Yes.
So I read probably a book a week.
Every time I'm with you, you're like, have you read this book? And I'm like, oh my God, I feel not worthy.
Right now, I am reading Only the Paranoid Survive.
Okay.
Which is fascinating because I am oddly paranoid, always have been. So it's right up my alley. But I got to go to a classic, Good to Great.
Yeah.
Was one
Jim
of my
Collins.
Jim Collins, very, very favorite books. Read it very, very early on in my career, and it kind of stuck with me, and I've read it over and over. And then How Women Rise would be my other one.
Yes.
Marshall Goldsmith and Sally Helgeson. Fantastic book, particularly for some good practical career advice for women and some of our tendencies in the workplace.
Love that.
It's a good
Love
one.
that. Those are two awesome ones. What was your first job?
My first job was at Victoria's Secret. I was a sales rep.
Yeah. Right into sales.
Into sales.
Perfect. And then, are you a quote person? Favorite quote?
Favorite quote is John Lennon. Everything will be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a John Lennon quote. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. So you and I share the staffing industry.
We do.
That's how we got to know each other. And I'm interested to know how you got your start in it. Staffing finds you, like when I looked at your, I get excited to talk to people who I know but don't know the early years or how they
Right.
got to what they're doing, because this is generally awesome. Because generally you have these conversations at like a cocktail hour or
Sure.
at an event.
Of course.
I'm so happy we never had this conversation so we could document
So you
it.
don't
But
know.
yeah, how'd you get your start into staffing? Because you spent over 2 decades, 22 years in staffing, and now I think of you as like speaker, podcast host, technology evangelist, guru, advisor, author.
Yeah.
So like,
How did that happen?
Yeah, like I know that wasn't in the purview at Victoria's Secret back in the
No.
day. So like, how'd you get into staffing, and maybe share some of your journey there?
Yeah. So I was a musician by education
Okay.
and by profession,
Okay.
straight out of school. So, musicians are known for making a ton of money.
Yes. The very famous one.
The very famous one. And so, fresh out of school, I was gigging at night. And my grandmother, so I was raised by my grandparents. My grandmother was a very Southern woman, and my Mima.
Yes.
And she said, I needed a job during the day, and she said, you should go be a Kelly girl. I was a Kelly girl.
A Kelly girl?
A Kelly girl.
What's-
Kelly Services
Oh,
was
Kelly
formerly,
Services. Okay.
formerly started as Kelly Girl.
I did not know that.
Yeah. 70 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, you should be a Kelly girl. And so I went and I signed up for Kelly Services for a day job, while I was still doing music at night. And I was working for Theratech. It was a pharmaceutical company. I was doing trending and analysis. It was exceedingly exciting, very exciting.
Especially for a person with your type of personality.
Right. Spreadsheets are awesome.
Wow.
And they forgot to pay me one week. You know how that happens, right? Payroll mistake. Sales rep, apparently it was a big account. Sales rep shows up, I'm so sorry, and my paycheck. And we kind of hit it off. Her name was Debbie Pezos. Loved her. We sort of hit it off, and we got to chatting. And then, the more we got a dialogue going, she was like, we have a recruiter opening. And I was, okay, let's do
I'm
this.
in, yeah.
And then
Less
that was
spreadsheets, more people.
Right. Less spreadsheets, more people. I'm into this. Let's see. Novell BrainShare was my very first entrance into recruiting, and it was for 2,000 people for the Y2K.
Whoa.
And
No
that's
way.
how old I am.
Yeah.
And I had a knack for the big stuff. Like if you needed 1,000 people, I was your girl. And so kind of immediately I went right into the bigger stuff like Microsoft and Capital One and, some of the big companies. And then I met my husband in Utah, and we transferred out to California. So I transferred with Kelly, and I was at DePuy Orthotech, which is a subsidiary of J&J. So
Yes.
again, big stuff. And I was doing Blue Cross Blue Shield. So both of those I was in on-site. So I went from recruiter to on-site, and then I was recruited away from Kelly by Remedy, which is
Okay.
now EmployBridge.
Yes.
So it was Remedy, then Select, now EmployBridge, right? It's had a couple names. And then I was recruited away from Select by Volt.
Okay.
And that was really my last job in staffing. And I left Volt, went to a small little winery company in California for a couple years, and then I went back to Volt. And that's really where I started. I built my first tech stack in 2012, 2013.
Okay.
And I was running a really successful region in Northern California. And when Volt went to go from a homegrown system to software as a service, I was tapped on the shoulder to be kind of a part of that. Because at that point, it's like 2011, I'd already figured out how to leverage what little technology was out there in some meaningful ways to create profitability, efficiency. I took VMS out of the branch. I put it elsewhere. I took operations out of the branch and created an ops center. And so when they were looking for kind of a team to put together to go through this buying process, I was tapped on the shoulder to be a part of that. And that's when I got my hands on HR tech, work tech, staffing tech. That's where it all started. And I was sort of hooked. So once I got, my teeth into that, I was like, oh, I love solving problems with technology, not replacing, and I think that's where, my doneness, my doneness with corporate America and corporate bureaucracy and red tape. I was very tired of all of that. And I wanted to be able to make, quick decisions. I had some very, very strong opinions about how technology should and shouldn't be used. So that's, when I went back to Volt the second time, I decided that at that point I was really frustrated. And I ended up as an early layoff casualty of the pandemic. And that was kind of my runway.
Okay.
To open my own company on March 2nd of 2020, no less.
You are, there's an odd theme going on with the podcast where I want to say 6 out of the last 10 guests we've had started businesses either pre-pandemic, in the midst of the pandemic. It's a wild trend. It's a wild trend. What an opportunity that became.
I'm not going to lie. I spent all of March crying and drooling in the corner going, what have I done?
Right.
Because,
Great timing,
right? What have I done? But at that point, I figured out really quickly that, companies were desperate to digitally transform. A lot of them hadn't even gone paperless.
Right.
So in many cases, we were just digitizing. And so I ended up, with spectacular first year. My first year, I replaced my corporate income, signed my first $1 million SOW, and it was pretty incredible. And signed my first partnership with another vendor. And so, had an incredible first year, had a 3-digit growth second year. As we came into the third year, I think everybody last year was struggling in Q1 and Q2. But last year, we ended Q2 30% down. We ended the year 30% over. It just all came in a fire hose last year. And then this year, our fourth year, on March 5th, we merged with Newberry Partners.
Right. So it's a new chapter again.
New chapter, yeah.
Wild. So before we get into the here and now, talk to me. You glossed over, but you left Volt and you were like doing the winery thing. What happened at that? Were you like, I'm done with America and corporate America at that point? Like, what was going through your brain?
When I left Volt and I went to Star, it was a local, Lisa and Nicole, the two owners, they were amazing. Never had I had an experience, because I'd always been with really big companies, right, where it was like it really was like family, right? You hear companies say that all the time. We're a family, and it's a crock of
bullshit.
Yeah. You said it.
I'll say it.
No, and it's a crock of hooey, and but this was like, I was invited to her wedding, and it was wonderful, but I didn't have enough to do.
Okay.
I wanted more, and I wanted more, and I wanted more, and I wanted more, and so when Volt invited me back. And I was, working outside of the U.S. I didn't have global experience really on my resume, and that was something I really wanted to add to my resume. So I thought maybe that would be, the thing that kept me in corporate America. Right. But I was already frustrated when I left Volt the first time. That's kind of where the frustration began. Just, I'm not a good rule follower.
Yeah, right. Well, and sales people rarely aren't.
Yeah.
Nor are people who start their own businesses. But do you, I guess for me, I'm curious. You even said when I went back to Volt, thinking about my resume, the global experience, doesn't sound to Mark like starting your own gig is on your mind at that point in time.
I was scared. I was terrified. I had been thinking about it. When I was at Star, I was like, I could consult a little bit. And as a matter of fact, before I went back to Volt, I actually consulted for them.
Okay.
And that's really when I got my kind of first taste of, okay, what I could charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And kind of testing out customers. And I got a little bit of a taste of what that would have been like. And then, of course, I went on full time. And so once I got a taste of that, I was like, okay, I could do that. I could do this. And, women are statistically more risk adverse.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of those things go through my head. My husband's an entrepreneur. I was like, we can't have all our eggs in entrepreneur baskets.
Right.
Like somebody's got to have benefits. But I'm like, it's 2020. There's got to be a way to get benefits, right? And there was. I just was letting fear, false emotion appearing real, right, sort of guide my decision making or lack thereof. And so when I was laid off, it sort of forced me to take the risk it for the biscuit, right? I had some financial runway, and that allowed me to have the freedom of not the worry, the worry that you have of starting a new business and all that comes with it. And so I was terrified. I had thought about it for years before I actually did it.
Okay. And but that's interesting. What was your backup plan if you weren't starting your own business? Like when you went back to Volt, what was plan B?
So I started my business and I was doing the right thing because, my dad always taught me have multiple irons in the fire, right?
Yes.
So while I was getting my consulting business underway, I was also doing more traditional interviews. I interviewed this is where I met Chris Loop from BGSF.
Okay.
And I was interviewing with them. And so I was doing all of the right things. And then, I sort of got my feet up under me. The Lady Leaders were my first 3 accounts. So all of that was kind of happening at the same time, too. The Lady Leaders kind of came together.
Tell the audience what the Lady Leaders are.
So those are the 15 women that authored the book with me.
Yes.
And so that all happened kind of at the same time. I opened my business March 2nd of 2020, and if you recall, SIA was March 9th, so the following week.
Yes.
So I had 18 appointments. I was like, no one is going to see me coming. I mean, watch this, people. Like, I'm going to kick ass and take some names, right? Well, of course, SIA was canceled.
Yes.
And nobody went. But at that, I had all these appointments scheduled, but I also had a dinner scheduled. That was with Leslie Vickery, who's been a friend of mine for a decade in the industry. She's the CEO of Clear Edge Marketing. And we were putting a dinner together for Joyce Russell, the president of the Adecco Foundation, for her book, Cherry on Top. And of course, SIA didn't happen. So we're like, let's celebrate her on a Zoom call.
Right.
So we got the Zoom call together. And, very quickly, the 15 of us kind of came together and we did a remote cooking class, virtual cooking class. We did virtual yoga. And then we started a book club. So the Lady Leaders Book Club. And we had Heather Monahan, Gay Gaddis, Erica Keswin. We had some of the biggest female authors out there. We're all really ambitious women and, kept one-upping one another with the authors we were bringing to the table, right? And we had Michelle Prince, who is the founder of a publishing company. And she said, you guys should write a book. And I think we all kind of giggled and, we're like,
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, sure. And then, no, she said, no, I'm serious. This is a really cool story. I mean, many of us didn't know one another before, the pandemic happened and we were all connecting virtually. And so when I always get honked off when people are like, you can't have relationships virtually. And I'm like, yes, you absolutely can.
Right.
We made meaningful connections that created this beautiful thing that created multiple scholarship opportunities for ASA and the Women in Leadership Scholarship Fund. So, you absolutely can do that thing, and what you put in is what you get out. And so, Michelle told us to write a book, and we wrote the book, and that all happened at the same time.
Oh, that's wild. I didn't get into the ASA, SIA sphere, I guess you'd say, until about the same time. And so watching you guys from arm's length, I thought you were all just like really great buddies from forever long ago.
Forever long ago. That's what you would think.
Yeah, like in the book was just that's wild.
Yeah.
So you really didn't know a lot of those women until that.
Rana was my old boss, right?
Yep.
I knew her very well, and she was one of the most meaningful female mentors, and I didn't have very many in my career, sadly. And so she and I have remained very close. I love her very much. And Leslie. But beyond that, I knew Joyce, but I knew of Joyce.
Yeah.
We had talked. I had actually interviewed with Joyce at one point.
Okay.
So I knew of Joyce, but yeah, we were all very, very friendly, and we knew of one another and respected one another. But the closeness that we share today, I don't think would have existed without the pandemic.
Yes, that's incredible.
Yeah.
See, that's incredible. Talk about Mark having it wrong. I was just like, maybe these women have known each other for years.
Yeah.
They're writing a book.
Yeah.
Was the process of writing a book wild?
It really was. I mean, when they say everybody's got a book in them, when you actually start going through the exercise of doing that, and granted, we all just wrote a chapter, but I have a book in me. Now I know I have a book in me. I have two.
Ooh.
And
Coming to a bookstore near you?
Yeah, we've got Lady Leader's book number 2 coming out.
Okay.
So we're working on that right now, and we're desperately trying to grow our now merged company. So I've really
got some irons in the fire.
Yeah, I got a lot of irons in the fire. So I'm trying to be good about not biting off more than I can chew, which I'm terrible at.
Right.
I will always say yes.
Yes.
Always, clearly. I mean,
right. When you were like,
No.
I'll come to Boston, I was like, this is unbelievable. Wrong time zone. Day before, a couple days of a conference you have to be in the city for? Yeah.
No, I'm here for it. Yeah. So this whole, I had a midlife crisis in 2016. That's where the farm came from. So if you read my chapter,
yes,
it all starts in like 2015, 2016.
Okay.
When I had a total meltdown.
What happened?
Like I'm just a little over 40.
Yep.
I live in a perfect little cul-de-sac, and we were all 30-something when we came in there. We'd all lived there for over a decade, raising our kids. And, you drive in, and everybody says hi, and they stop your car, and you do all the things. And for whatever reason, I started feeling suffocated. Just like I had too much shit. I owned too much shit. I was filling gaps that were inside, this lack of satisfaction with my job or with stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And I talk about that. The things that I was owning started owning me.
Interesting.
And I talk about that in my chapter. And so I was like, I want to move. I want land. I don't want anybody near me.
Yeah.
Which sounds completely irrational. But we took about 18 months to find a farm, and we bought a really shitty house on a nice piece of land in California, because that's about all you can afford in California. if you want any land.
You want land, yeah.
And so we bought this old Rambler and took it down basically to the studs. And for 4 years, we finished it right at the pandemic, the house. And I mean, it's never done, right?
Right.
But that's where the farming started. And I started my gratitude practice right around that time, and almost got rid of everything I owned. I took 17 bags of clothing down to the women's empowerment shelter, 200 pairs of shoes. It was ridiculous.
Whoa.
And the stuff that I was feeling, my lack of satisfaction. So I started really, really seeking satisfaction in my career, and I started taking risks, which was part of leaving Volt, right? That was a risk. It was very safe there, but, left, went and tried something new, a small firm, like a family firm. It was so fun. I mean, wine and weep. What's better than that, right?
Right. It's completely different than the...
Oh, my gosh. And that's where I learned that enterprise firms and small firms had very similar problems. Just in the small firm, I realized when I built their tech stack and then built the organization around it, but I'm doing data migration and configuration and training. You're doing all the things. You're wearing so many hats. And so I have this little love affair with these small businesses. They have a special place in my heart because I know how hard it is to implement technology and scale your business with technology when you're a $25, $30 million company. It's hard.
It's very hard.
And you have very few resources. And so those customers were my focus in the very beginning.
Limited resources and limited change management experience in that sector too, right? Which is just the experience of that. Unfortunately, you can't get it anywhere else other than effing it up.
Yeah, and it helped me when I went back to Volt, get really scrappy.
Yeah.
And I think that prepared me for the scrappiness of entrepreneurship because you wear all the hats.
Literally all of them.
As the solopreneur, right? I started as a solopreneur all by myself. And, if you're not billing, I had the punch in the gut with my first enterprise account that was like, oh, sorry, the PO ran out of money. Like, no notice.
Right.
Right? And you're like, oh, I'm going to throw up.
Yeah. What are we doing tomorrow?
What are we doing tomorrow?
Right.
And so then I got really good at a solopreneur pipeline, which I was great as, carrying a bag. You've got to have a pipeline. But when you're a solopreneur,
you're doing
it.
So you're
So you're not building a pipeline and stuff like that. So I got super scrappy.
It's I'd love for you to share, and I'm interested, generally curious more, where were the signs of I'm not satisfied? Because I'm guessing to the outside world, you looked pretty satisfied.
Yeah.
And I think this, if you're on social media now in 2024, so 8 years later, get rich and get off the grid is a thing people are chasing. And I think it's becoming more, having less things is becoming more in vogue. But for you, what were some of the early signs it wasn't working, and what was the straw that broke the camel's back to be I'm gonna go buy a farm?
Maybe one too many episodes of Fixer Upper.
Okay,
I don't know.
exactly.
I don't know.
The Gaines family is getting thrown
The
under
Gaines
the bus.
family is the influencer. No, I think it was that heaviness. It was this weight that I kept. A void that you just can't fill. And I've been married for almost 26 years. And I had this great personal satisfaction with my family and my girls, but my girls were getting older. But career-wise, I still felt just this emptiness, that I wasn't in charge.
Okay.
And someone else was, and I was putting all of this effort. I mean, I work my ass off, whether it's for you or somebody else.
Yeah.
I will outwork. I will out hustle, and that's how I grew up.
Yes.
Right. One of my first serving jobs was at Little America. I will never forget this. I wanted to work there so bad because they had the most adorable little German outfits, right? Like the little beer Stein outfits. They were so cute.
It's amazing when we're young what we think is going to be the best part of working there. Yeah.
And they made amazing tips, right? And this was in college, and so I wanted to be a server because I knew how much money they made. And so one of my girlfriends, her mom was an administrator there, or worked for them, and so she said, "Why don't you come and you can just come for, I think it was Mother's Day or Easter, right? Just a push holiday where they ramp up, and then you don't get a job." You're not wanted anymore after that, right?
Yes.
You're just a
field filler for the day.
Yeah, exactly. So I went and I got my cute little outfit, and I outworked every single person there. Every single person there. My waiters made double the tips because I was a busser.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I bussed the most tables, and they noticed, and I was offered a job. And so, my entire career, I was like, if I'm not going to be the smartest person or the person that knows, or the most experienced person, I'll just outwork you.
It's my favorite part of living in this country, to be honest, is that statement of hey, even if I'm not the smartest person, I can outwork people. Right? It's and it's in your control.
Yeah.
Which is so awesome. I love that. And also talk about taking an opportunity and seizing it. in the moment, right? Like you were mentally prepared to outwork everybody there.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And so, the more risks I started taking kind of professionally, leaving Volt, going there, working so hard for that small company to help them be successful, and then just this frustration of, why am I doing this for somebody else? Why am I doing this for less than 1% of
right?
Of this, and that, I think, was what started the fire in my belly. Like I kick myself every single day. The amount of money that I could have made my entire career if I would have, because I was a much older entrepreneur, right? 46 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm 50, and so I have to think differently. I don't have 20 years to put into my business. I don't have that kind of time.
Yes.
Which is why the merge was so great, is I had to think differently. Women get 2% of PE and VC funding. I went shopping for money. It was very clear that A, nobody was interested in services, and B, women just don't get a lot of funding.
Rate.
And we have significantly lower exits. We're at 3 to 5x, and men-run organizations are 8 to 10x. And so I had to think really differently about what is my exit going to look like as an older entrepreneur. And so to all the women out there, you're never too old. You just have to think differently.
Right. The game looks different.
Yeah.
Although, like other guests we've had on the podcast, I gotta imagine that your previous 22 years of experience rapidly helped you.
Sure.
Like you could have started your business earlier for sure, but man, I gotta think those are some serious lessons learned, and industry experience and network.
The network, I think, was the most powerful, is because, I was always kind of considered myself a super connector. Like if I see two people that I think need to know each other, like I will make that connection.
Yes.
And I've always been like that. And so, when they say your network is your net worth,
yes,
they're not lying.
Right. How do you think people should go about, if they aren't a gregarious person, do you have any advice for people about how to network?
Yeah.
Start a network?
You know what surprises everybody is that I am not an extrovert at all. I am an introvert in extrovert's clothing.
Yes. Well, that Daniel Pink, right? When he wrote To Sell is Human, and he talked about most people aren't extroverts or introverts, they're ambiverts, and that it can very much depend on the day of what you feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conferences, I need 3 days after a conference to not talk to anybody.
It's overload.
Yeah. I have serious sensory issues, so all of the noise gets me. But I am not by nature an extrovert. I am by nature a friendly person. And so for those of you, listening that aren't quite comfortable, or I think that's charming.
Yes. Yeah.
Just be yourself. But you do have to, put the hand out. Just put your hand out.
Take the risk.
Yeah, take the risk, put your hand out. And that's what I would tell myself when I'd walk into those situations and feel this overwhelming, oh my God, there's so many people in here. Which conversation do I tackle first? And I would always sort of dare myself to go meet somebody new. Yeah. Even if it was one person.
It's, I laughed because I was at a thing on Friday at a conference in the city, and I was like, I got to go meet 3 new people today.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, that's what I used to tell myself like 15 years ago when I wore a suit that looked like it was my dad's, and and was like, had that complete youthful ignorance look.
Sure.
No gray hairs, and it's like, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. 15 years later, I'm still like, go meet 3 new people today.
I always used to say, even as a recruiter, I'm not a salesperson. I'm just not. That's very scary. I can't cold call. I can't do that. I can't.
Even though you were doing it every single day.
I was doing it every single day. And once I turned it into like, one of the first big accounts I got was Duraflame.
Okay.
And I did it by trespassing.
Love that.
They wouldn't let me in the front door. So I got my steel toe heels on, and I went in the back door.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, guys.
That's so good.
I finally got to meet Ray. This is the guy that I have been hunting and I was at like stalker level 10.
Yes.
And I treated it like like investigation, you know? And when you took the I'm cold calling fear out of it and turned it into the, like, I'm
I got to connect with that person.
I got to connect with that person.
Yes.
There is, if you have that drive,
Yes.
It doesn't go away.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
It's a powerful motivator.
Yeah.
So now, right, Leap and you're combined with Newberry. What's the new organization called? I don't want to.
So we are now going to be Leap Advisory Partners.
Leap
so
Advisory.
Leap Consulting Solutions to Leap Advisory Partners. So there's a little more synergy. We're doing a brand refresh, release at Engage.
Okay.
So,
Exciting. Thrilling. So this is a big week.
Yeah, it's a big week.
Big week. So now you're advising companies on their tech stacks, technology, or how to solve problems through technology, and you live on a farm.
And I live on a farm.
It's like I love
With
the
sheep
juxtaposition.
and goats
So like, how I just find that to be so awesome. Like, because it's like you would expect the person coming to your company to maybe advise you on tech stacks that they're like, I don't know. I don't have a good example, but I'm thinking of like Elon Musk playing video games until 4 a.m, right? And you're like, no, today I was walking my 6 dogs, you know, and you're like, what? Like, so like, how do you like have this insatiable passion for tech? Because like you, of the people I talk to in the industry, and there are quite a few, you're not a degreed computer scientist, I don't believe.
I'm a classically trained musician by education.
That's right,
Yeah.
right, okay. I just wanted to completely instill.
Yeah.
So like, but you love it, and you know about the cutting edge stuff, and I want to say like the stuff before the cutting edge stuff because you're in the right connections. But where does that come from? Like, why? I
think it's because I am so empathetic of the job seeking process.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's insanely terrible.
I have said this quote every podcast I've been on. You're seeking out the acceptance of strangers with a piece of paper that was invented in 1482. It's absurdity.
It's wild.
And now with, you know, bots that are screening resumes and resume skinning and all of this, you know, AI writing resumes, AI screening resumes, it's the absurdity of it all. And I go
It's
back.
almost like we're getting worse.
Yeah. And I go back to when I was recruiting and, you know, Microsoft would call or Capital One would call and say, LJ, I need X, Y, or Z. Send them to me. No interview.
Right.
Just send me your best
Trust.
person.
Yeah.
Trust.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, sort of evaporated over time with MSPs and VMSs and, you know, this commercialization and commoditization. And I still think at the end of the day, you know, we're a $700 billion, or is that what we're up to? A $700 billion middleman industry.
It's wild.
Right.
And like I personally, as someone who loves tech, but just thinks about the core of our business being connecting people, I think to myself, man, all of this noise is good news for us because we still need humans to curate what is coming through. So it's an interesting time.
And that's where my strong opinions came in, because I was like, this is not a replacement. I would get so frustrated with, oh, well, technology could do that. And I'm like, no, technology can do the busy work.
Yes.
You know, technology on repetition, people on relationships. And if we can keep that as the rule of thumb, you know, I think, you know, we don't lose our way.
Right.
And so that's where I love solving problems. I do my Wordle and my Quirtle and my Octortle. I love solving problems. And so to me, solving the problem of a really shitty job experience, job seeking experience, is my North Star. Like if there's a legacy that I leave, is like she made the job seeking process just a little less shitty.
Yes. It's like, I would say it's my favorite thing to be able to give back to the community is like the insider knowledge of how it works. Yeah. So last Thursday night, I got an email from my wife's uncle. And so her cousin, his son is in college, and sent the email being like, he's got this resume due by tomorrow at 5 p.m. And can you take a look at it? I know it's what you do every day. And so, you know, get it. And you're like, oh, this is going to be great. I get to help this person. So I call him and I go, just so you know, none of this matters. Like almost none of it matters. And I went through like the things you'd fix, and I was like, the most important thing you do. He was a freshman in Philly looking for a internship.
Oh.
So I was like, the most important thing you do is you go to the alumni office and you get who are the alumni that live in this 30-mile radius of where you want to work. And I was like, you call those people and you let them know your story. Hey, I'm a freshman. I'm looking to get my foot in the door. I was like, you got to outwork everybody because some AI screener is looking at that resume and ruling you out for no reason we'll never know.
Keywords.
The wrong ones that
The
you
wrong
chose.
ones.
So,
Right.
yeah, that's really cool. When you said, I don't know if it was at ASA or SIA. I will admit, I get
It's all right.
all of it. Come on.
We're just acronym.
Acronym
crazy.
land. But when we were at a conference, and I loved how I think it was about AI. I think it was about the future of AI, and you were on a panel talking about it, and you're like, it's not going to replace people.
It's just not.
And people were like so dumbfounded by that. It was like almost controversial.
Yeah,
It was almost controversial, but then I feel like if you sit and think about it, right? Certainly, you play it forward, and it can go Terminator on us for sure.
For sure.
But like, think about how much it's going to help you do what actually is the core part of the job that I think keep people in the industry. If you can make it in staffing for more than 2 years, you genuinely like helping people find jobs.
Right. Agreed.
And so I think that's the benefit of it. So are you like now with the merger? How has the field changed for you? Like you talked about starting a business maybe later in your career than maybe you would have hoped. I don't even think that's a fair assertion for me to say, but like, and you have a different playing field. Now you've got this partner. Like, what excites you the most about it?
I think the opportunity, because I was trying desperately to scale, right?
Yes.
And do more, and we were just at max capacity. Like I had 0 hours left in the day. Erin had 0 hours left in the day. We brought Maddie on. She doesn't have any hours. How do we scale this without talent? And that's really where Newberry's sort of and. I say this about Chris Scouten. He is the most patient human on the planet because I know I got cold feet a million times. I think I told him absolutely not the first time he approached me. You're nuts. As a matter of fact, I think what I said was what you just said made me sick to my stomach.
Wow.
Because the thought of working for someone or with someone. Like answering to anyone, I just had corporate PTSD,
Yeah.
And
it was a big motivator in starting Leap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I thought maybe I'd be going backwards. And he has been such a patient and compassionate person who, we've really, really come together. We complement each other so very well. We were already working together on a number of accounts. And, we would come in, build it. They would come in, implement it. We would sort of both wrap back around to make sure customer success training, adoption was a meaningful part of their experience. And so it was this, I started to see that we very naturally dovetailed, one another and complemented a bookend. We were like bookends. And so the conversations got a little more comfortable. I'm like, okay, so let's just say me or a girlfriend might be interested in the things that you're saying, but not me, somebody else,
Play it forward.
But play that forward. What did that look like? And slowly but surely I started to see that I could, some of the things I wanted to accomplish in the amount of time I wanted to accomplish them, I could do it with all of these beautiful resources at my disposal.
That was like, from the outside looking in and knowing where you had worked in the past, like resources were abundant at those previous employers. Then you get into solopreneur world and you're like, oh baby.
Oh baby.
Oh baby. So I thought it would be resources. And I think knowing Newberry, who we love and have used many times, but I think your secret sauce of putting the human back in technology is a wonderful compliment too.
Yeah, we are. I mean, our number one core value is we lead with empathy, and I think one of the things that gets lost.
What a crazy thing!
I know, right? We really acknowledge the emotional component of going through a technical transition like that, and because it's scary, it's a big investment, it's a ton of change. In some cases, it's these businesses that have just cracked like the just almost at 50 million or just barely got to, whatever financial goal that they had. And they're making this investment because they know this investment is going to help them scale. And I am very hard on my technology vendors because I need them to acknowledge that in many cases, this is a mom and pop shop putting their entire fortune in your hands.
Right,
to
the
help
chips
them.
are on the table.
Yeah, they're putting everything in your hands to help them build their business and leave a legacy.
Right.
And I think with that power comes responsibility. And so, yeah, I'm very
That's
tough
wonderful.
on vendors.
No, that is wonderful. Well, it's incredible, and congrats.
Thank
Congrats, because
you.
it's wonderful work for our industry, but I also think for people in general, like to help in that manner. So, and you've clearly built an incredible reputation.
Thank you.
For it to work in that manner. So, but what one thing I'd love to hear about from LJ's life is the outside of work too. Like you've got the farm. You mentioned the gratitude practice. Like you, from the time I've gotten to know you, you've made it very evident that I work on my business, but I also work on myself. And can maybe you share with the audience? It's a common concept, I think, on Beers and Careers, but I've always said to people, hey, when work isn't going in my favor, I often look to my personal life and I go, what is out of whack here that I can get fixed? And maybe either parlay that win into my professional life or distract my brain for a little bit. But I feel like the more I'm having success outside of work, it translates to more success in work.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I'm an entrepreneur later in life for a number of reasons. One was risk, right? The other was my girls, right?
Yes.
That was, working for somebody else gave me the freedom to be at every soccer game and be at every school event and do the wonderful things that I've been able to do and share with both my girls. And so as an empty nester,
Yes.
you got a little time on your hands.
I can only imagine, as someone who lives at hockey rinks and soccer and lacrosse
Oh my
fields,
God.
I can
Let
only
me just
imagine.
tell you, Mark, my husband and I looked at each other, I think it was the first weekend that we weren't with 18 soccer bags with 6 soccer girls. Allie my youngest did soccer for 10 years and travel ball and high school ball and all the balls. And
And it's wild. It's so different now.
And so we were like, did we always have this much time on our hands? Right. But now, my eldest is married. She's 26. My youngest, listen to this. You want to talk about playing the game. We've been going, she applied to 35 law schools.
Okay.
So she's graduated from college. She wants to go to law school. And she said, I'm going to apply to 35 schools. And I literally said, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. What are we doing that for? Can we narrow that down a
Can
little
we
bit?
narrow that down? Because I'm not paying a quarter of tuition on application fees. And I said, I'll tell you what. You've got, I think I'd give her a $1,500 budget. Figure it out.
Yeah.
And so she started doing some research, and she read on one of the Reddit pages that you could have your application fees waived simply by either calling or writing a letter.
Wow.
And so we ended up with, I think, about $1,200 in application fees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah, it's because she had them all waived. And so one of her top 3 schools was USC, South Carolina. And she got waitlisted. And I said to her, let's go play the game. And she was like, what do you mean? I'm like, let's put our face in front of them. We know that they log when you show up. We know that they keep a track record of every engagement. We know they keep a track record of every email. I said, so let's go.
Yeah, let's get in front of them.
So we flew out there, and serendipitously enough, And this was 2 weeks ago. So we flew out there 2 weeks ago. And because it was finals, the only person that could do the tour was the director of admissions.
Wow.
God bless Tyler. Thank you. And we became very fast friends because I've always taught my girls, it doesn't matter how smart you are, don't be an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, don't be the asshole.
Yes.
You can negotiate your grades if you're not an asshole.
Right.
And which is largely why my youngest went to a very small private school, because she goes, Mom, I can't negotiate grades with too many kids in the class. She's amazing.
Yes, she's going to be a hell of a lawyer.
Right? And so we went on the tour with Tyler. We kind of became fast friends. He sat us down at the end and said, look, we have had a record number of applicants this year. And, there's no order to our wait list. And, I just don't know. I don't know that I have any great news for you right now, but we're just so grateful that you came here. And 2 days later, he called and said, I actually went to the dean because we were so impressed with the fact that you flew out here from California. Play the game.
Yeah.
So just play the game.
Action. Don't wait for things to happen.
Don't wait.
It's
And she's in. That's where she's going.
Oh, that's phenomenal. That's so phenomenal. So that starts
August. She starts at the end of August.
Damn.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Very cool. I mean, it's a wonderful, though, example of all of the structure that's created. Like the job seeker. Apply. Right? It's like, no, don't just apply. Talk to people. It's not that hard to find out who works there and get your name in front of someone.
Do the research.
When
Play
it comes
the game.
to anything, right? No, that is awesome. That is awesome. So for you, have there been any was the farm like a massive personal milestone for you?
It was.
In your professional success?
Allowed me to focus on something that
Yeah.
wasn't me or stuff.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? We worked for 4 hard years on the house.
And maintaining a farm, even though it's you say it's done, but it's never done, it's got to be a full-time job.
Oh, yeah. We got to repaint all the fences this
Yeah.
year. We got to, we got to do all of that. The goats need their hooves trimmed. It's springtime. Justin Timber Goat doesn't stay sexy on his own.
Give me your top 3 animal names that you've named animals.
KFC was my rooster.
Yes, rest in peace, right?
Rest in peace. We lost him the night before last to a fox. Butterball was one of our turkeys. And then of course Justin Timber Goat, and then we also do wildlife rehab. So we've got the raccoons.
The raccoons, yes, who can pop up on a Zoom call at any point in time.
At any point in time.
Do you feel like the nature part of what you're doing, for lack of a better word, has helped just change your demeanor?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I am a very anxious person by nature.
Okay, yeah.
And, focusing on something besides yourself,
yes.
Right? Giving this idea, my word for 2024 is giving. And because I didn't feel like I was giving enough away,
Okay.
right? Of myself, of my time, whether it's to animals or my family or my husband or my friends. Or my business, or my customers, and I think that's what the farm has allowed me to do is just focus on something. It's really easy to get self-centered.
It is, and sometimes on the wrong things.
Too, and you focused and me focused,
yes.
and you forget how great it feels to do something nice for somebody else or something else, an animal. One of the raccoons we had got bloat, right, which is pretty deadly for them. And I spent the entire weekend focused on getting her well and getting her back to health. And, it was touch and go there for a little minute, but she's, she was a happy and healthy raccoon now. And it's just getting outside yourself.
Yes, in your comfort zone.
Yeah, just not focusing on you, giving your time and your effort and your energy and your goodness, giving it to something, giving it away.
Yeah. Are you a particularly spiritual person?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like when you were on the cul-de-sac, were you very much looking at yourself more so?
I think I just was in this there was no gratitude, just this lack of gratitude, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, lack of gratitude, taking things for granted.
Why did you start the gratitude practice? Like, what was the
mindset?
Yeah.
You know, I have a tendency, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of, my husband calls it chronic malcontent.
because you're constantly raising the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he thinks but you have to write that. I mean, it's really good as a driver.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to get ungrateful.
Yes.
And look at what other people have and be dissatisfied with your life because somebody else has a bigger house or a better car or a better this or better that. I was constantly looking elsewhere, you know, keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes.
I'm a Jones, for God's sake.
Right.
Right.
You are. We're trying to keep up with you, LJ.
Right, I know. And yeah, I was just constantly playing this game of keeping up with the Joneses, and it was exhausting and unfulfilling and tiring and not healthy.
Right. But what I think is so cool about your story is you can give and still be successful in your own right. And it doesn't, you know, what you're doing and giving to others doesn't take away from what you've got or on some competitive rank that exists nowhere in the game of life. So it's really impressive.
Thank you.
It's very impressive. And was there anything that you were hoping to share with the Beers and Careers audience that I didn't let you riff on today?
Oh my gosh, like you've got more out of me than I think most people.
Have I? Oh, thank you. I'll take that as a win.
Yeah, that's definitely a win for you. You know, I think that the one thing I want listeners to walk away with is, I think for whatever reason, we think we have expiration dates. At least I did, right? Particularly as a woman. You know, you're 45, it's the end of your career,
Right.
they're putting you out to pasture,
Right.
you know, and it's just not the case. Like, I'm just getting started. And I think it's okay. You got to give yourself a little bit of grace, man or woman. If you're a dad staying home with the kids, you know, give yourself the grace. You can still get back at it, right?
Yes.
I chose to wait to open my own business until my girls were, you know, grown and flown.
And I can't see you regretting any of that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I was
Even
right
the
there.
smelly car rides. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. Girls are so smelly.
But like it is the one thing where, fortunately, through my parents or other mentors, right, or even just colleagues in the office, when they're like, "Oh, I got this hockey tournament all weekend," and people will just make offhanded remarks and be like, "Oh, it's the best," and then I'll like go to my office and be like, "Ooh, like that's a person that has lived longer than me. I should like pay attention to what they're saying." And so we've had some. You know, with my wife, we've had some long rides where it's been like, man, we're driving again for this hockey tournament all weekend. And I get in the car and I look at her and go, we're going to miss this. Let's enjoy shit out of this day.
We're going to miss this one day. You miss orange slices.
Right.
And you're going to miss all of that. Let me tell you, you know, I got a little weepy as we were looking at apartments last night, you know, going through the whole thing in South Carolina. And
That's the joy of it.
That's the joy
like
of
when
it.
people say, like, I always thought it was so hokey when people were like, enjoy the journey. You know, because I mean, I was admit in my early 20s, I was like, I got to make money and pay for shit. Like, I got to get out of mom and dad's house, right? But I can, sitting here now, I can say I will never pretend to fully admit that I get it. But I feel like I'm starting to get it. Like, well, if you don't wake up on a Saturday and enjoy what's ahead of you, what are you working for? So
Exactly.
And it's a testament to what you've done with the Women in Leadership, the scholarships, your professional and your personal career. You've done. It's admirable how you've woven it all together. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And like I said, our biggest problem was going to be Mark could talk to LJ we could have done a Rogan 4 hours today. So, but thanks again for coming on. It was awesome.
This has been so enjoyable.
It's
Thank you
awesome.
so much for
Yes.
having me. I really appreciate it.
And
Thank you.
thanks for traveling so far to be on Beers and Careers.
Anytime.
We very much appreciate it. We're going to have to get an update eventually on how Chapter 2 goes of
Yes.
Leap Advisory.
Yes, I'll let you know.
Thank you, LJ. Take
Thank
care.
you.